Hey everyone, I am here to give you a walkthrough on how to use OneNote in your classroom. This is a very basic tutorial. I'm not going into anything too complicated. I'm not going to show you how to actually set up a class notebook in OneNote, which is something a little bit different. A class notebook allows you to import your students into it, where you have every student will get their own individual notebook and then they can do different things as a class in that notebook. I'm not going to show you how to do that. That's definitely a more advanced option. Maybe if people are really interested, I can maybe go through a video of that later on this school year. I have never used that feature. I'm just going to show you how to set up a very basic notebook that kind of mimics a binder for your classroom. This is something that I used last year. I found it to be extremely helpful when we moved to online learning because it gave students a place that they could go and find all of their notes for the class, all of their homework for the class, and anything else that I wanted to kind of share with them. So without any further ado, let's get into it. Okay, so the first thing you need to do obviously is to make sure that you have OneNote on your computer. It does come in any standard Microsoft Office suite. So if you have Microsoft Office on your computer, chances are you already have OneNote. If you don't have Microsoft installed on your computer, then you can get it for free through the district. So I'm at the SPS web page right now. I lost my mouse. There it is. So if you go over to where it says staff and then you go to Office 365 and click on it, my internet's a bit slow, so I have my pages pre-opened. You're going to see OneNote right here. Now you can use it straight on the website. I think it's a bit tedious if you do it that way. My advice is just go ahead and install Office, which we also get for free through the district. And then it's going to give you all of those Office programs on your computer. That's my recommendation, but again, you can just use the OneNote that's on the website. It just makes it a little bit more tedious when you're trying to kind of create your stuff. It's not different, it's just a little bit weird. All right, so I have already installed Office on my computer. So what I'm going to do is go to the Start menu and I'm going to scroll down to O for OneNote. All right, now you're going to see two different versions on here. So if you already have Office pre-installed on your computer, an older version of Office, you're going to have that older version of OneNote also, which does look a little bit different than the newer updated version for Windows 10. So the OneNote for Windows 10 is the more updated version of OneNote, and that's what I'm going to be doing the tutorial with for you guys today. So I'm going to go ahead and click on that. And we're going to open up, well, I already had it open, that's okay. So we have OneNote open. Now, if you've never used OneNote before, this is obviously not what yours is going to look like. So we're going to go through what it's going to actually look like for you in a second, but I want to talk to you a little bit about how I set up my notebook to give you an idea of what we're going to be doing today. So this is just one way to use OneNote. This is not the be-all, end-all magic option. But like I said, I did use this last year and I found that it worked really, really well with my students. So I'm going to kind of tell you the technique that I used. So if you look over on the left-hand side, all right, so I have Marie's notebook. That's just my personal notebook. This is my personal home computer, so I do have my personal notebook on there. That's for like keeping track of like life and groceries and things like that. And then down here, you're going to see my two notebooks that I used for my school year last year. So if you notice, I only have two notebooks. One is HPC 1920 teacher version, and then the other one is HPC 1920 student version. So the technique that I used was I wanted one notebook for each subject that I taught. I only happened to teach one subject last year. I taught 5 classes of honors pre-calc. Lucky me, I know, it just worked out that way. So I only have the one subject. Now the reason I have two different folders is because when you share a notebook in OneNote, it will share it and every update that you do is automatically in there. So if I wanted to plan ahead lessons and I didn't want students to see it, if I were to only have the one notebook, I couldn't do that because students are going to automatically be able to see anything that's in that notebook once you've shared that link with them. So what I did was I created a teacher version where I kind of did all my planning ahead. So these notebooks are almost identical, but the student one is going to have the writing in it. It's going to have like any pictures that I shared with them that I maybe didn't do in the teacher version. And then the teacher version is going to be very blank. So you can see like when I'm in the teacher version, I don't have anything written on the page. It's just very blank. Whereas the same exact page in the student notebook has a bunch of writing on it. All right, so this is what the students can see, whereas in the teacher version, since I did not share that notebook, that's something that only I can see. So this is where I would do all of like my planning ahead stuff. So if I wanted to like, maybe I have unit 0 planned and I want to skip ahead and plan unit 7 because like I have a really good idea for it, I could just go ahead and start planning in unit 7 and the students wouldn't be able to see that. So that's why I have 2 separate notebooks. They're almost identical at this point because the school year is over, but the student version has writing, whereas the teacher version does not. I also kind of use the teacher version as like my master copy. So like if I wrote on a student page and like really mess it up and then try to erase it, there's not a really good like undo feature in OneNote, especially if you accidentally click off of the page that you've been writing on. You then can't go back into the page and like hit undo. It won't let you do that. So I use that teacher version as like my master copy and never really kind of wrote on it or edited it or anything like that. Once it was done, I kind of kept it there. That way, if I did accidentally delete something in the student version, I could just copy it back over from the teacher version, and it did save me several times. Okay, so with that being said, that's kind of my setup. So we're going to do the same thing for this year. So I need to create 2 notebooks. One is going to be a teacher version and one is going to be a student version. So nope, that's not what I want. All right, so I want to do a new notebook. So I'm going to go to the bottom and I'm going to hit plus notebook. All right, now you just want to make sure that you're doing this in whichever account you want to use for school. So since I do have 2 accounts, I could do this in my personal Gmail account, but that wouldn't help me if I was doing this on my school computer. So I want to make sure that I'm going to do this in my work account because I can't access my personal account on my school laptop. So now I'm just going to go ahead and I'm going to type in its name, keeping that same kind of thing. So this year I have just regular pre-calculus. So I have PC 2021 teacher. That looks good. All right, and create notebook. Now it does take a second to create the notebook. Hopefully it doesn't take too long. Usually it's, oh, there we go, a couple minutes, right? A minute or so. Okay, so this is what it looks like when you make your brand new notebook. So I do also need a student version of this. So I'm gonna go here and do plus notebook. I'm gonna do PC 2021, and this is gonna be my student notebook. And I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna hit create notebook because that looks good. All right, so now that I have my 2 notebooks, I have my teacher one and I have my student one. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and start editing. Now, if I wanted this to be, say I wanted to do, the first one popped up blue, so if I wanted this to be blue also, so I know that they went together, all you have to do is right click on something and you can go ahead and you can edit it. So there's a bunch of options here. I just wanna change the color because it's bothering me. So I'm gonna go ahead, I'm gonna hit blue, and now my 2 notebooks are the same color, so I know that they go together. Okay, so like I said, I do all of my setup in the teacher version and then I just copy and paste it over to the student version. So keeping that in mind, I'm gonna go into my teacher notebook and I'm gonna start adding my sections. Now again, there are different ways you can do this. In my classroom, I set it up where I had my very first section was their syllabus and then any important documents. So remember, keep in mind, I'm thinking of this like a binder. So this is, if I were a student, how would I want them to organize their binder? So at the very front, I would want them to have any of their important documents. So that's what I'm going to name my first section. So your sections are kind of like your divider tabs on that notebook or that binder. All right, so I can just go ahead and right click and then I can rename this. So I'm going to call this my syllabus. All right, I can just go to the bottom and add another section. So the next thing I would want my students to have would be their pacing guides. So anytime we started a new unit, we would go through the pacing for that unit together. And so then that would be what I would want them to have next. So all their pacing guides would come next. All right, and then for my class, I did the next part in units. So I did like unit 0, unit 1, unit 2, unit 3. And then in the pages, that's where I kind of separated their notes from their classwork. I know some teachers that do the sections differently. So their sections, like the next one, they would have like notes section, and then they would have a classwork section, and then maybe like a homework section or something like that. That's up to you. If that's how you want them to organize their notebook, that's how you can have them organize their notebook. There's nothing wrong with that. I just wanted them to be able to keep their notes separate for their units. That was my more important part. I was like, what do I want them to have separated more? The classwork from their notes or the units from each other? And ultimately, to me, it was more important to keep their units separate. So I went through and did my next sections as my unit numbers. So unit 0, which is like their review unit, unit 1, and then so on and so forth. And again, just like with the notebooks, if you right click on something, you can rename it, you can copy it, you can change the section color. Maybe you don't like that ugly brown. I don't blame you. You can go ahead and you can change it. All right, so set it up as far in advance as you want. Remember, students can't see this, so whatever you want to do in here, go for it. Once you do want it to be shared, which we'll talk about, you can then slide it into the student one, and then they will be able to see it. So your teacher one is kind of for you, student one is for them. All right, so inside my units, so since I decided that I wanted to keep my units were more important to keep separate than my notes and my classwork, inside my pages, this is your last like kind of like section of your thing. This is what's going inside your different binder sections. I did mine with a day. So I'm going to show you just what it looks like. All right, so this was from last year. So we're in unit 0. So I separated it on the pages. So for each day, my students had 3 pages minimum. One was their daily warm-up, one was their notes page, and the third one was their homework page. So that's how I did it. So I did have their homework kind of mushed in with their notes and their warm-ups. Again, if that's not something that you like, you are more interested in keeping that kind of separate, then you would do that on this section tab, on this section part instead of in the pages. But for me, this worked out for me. I just labeled it. So everything called day 1 was stuff that dealt with day 1 material. Everything on day 2 was stuff that dealt with day 2 material. So that was my technique. Again, feel free to make it your own and organize it however you would like. All right, so once you're in the pages, it's very similar to naming sections. The nice part is that instead of having to right click and then go to rename with your pages, you can just actually now go into the actual page of your notebook and you can type it at the top. So I want this to be day number 1, warm up. Cool. All right, so then I would go ahead and I would type in whatever I wanted their warm-up to be for the day, and you can move it around, edit it. It's pretty self-explanatory once you get in there and start working with it. It's pretty nice, right? So then you can go ahead and say I want to add another page, so I know this is going to be day number 1, notes. Add another page, day number 1, homework. Right now, if you notice, every time I hit a new page, they all have the same font and it pops up with this same background. That is not standard. That is something that I have customized, but it is very easy to do. So if you go up to the first page that you want to kind of change the look of and you go over to view, you're going to see a lot of stuff here. The main thing I'm going to look at is this thing where it says rule lines. So this is going to allow you to change the spacing of your lines. You can also choose to do graph paper, and you can also choose none. So those are your only options with this version of OneNote. It doesn't have a lot of customability, but it does at least let you have lined paper. Now, if this is something that you want on every page, when you're in that rule line, you want to make sure down here at the bottom that this is checked, where it says always create pages with rule lines. So if I were to click on it, right, if I were to click off of it anyways, if I were to add then a new page, it's going to show up blank because that's the default. All right, so if we go into rule line, and if I wanted maybe to change to graph paper, as long as I click always create pages with lines, all my new pages are going to have those same type of lines. So it's kind of nice. You can also change the page color if you're really into it. I don't know. it's there. The only downside with page color is that it's not permanent. Like you can't do it for all pages like you can with the lines. You would have to change the page color every single time in your notebook, which is kind of tedious, but if you really want it that bad, then you'll do it, right? The next thing I'm going to show you, and the last piece of actually like customization, is how to set your default font. So if you go to your top right corner where you see the three little bubbles, the little ellipses, you're going to click on it, go to settings and options. If you scroll down towards the bottom, you'll see a thing that says default font. So I think the standard font for OneNote is like Arial size 10 font. I don't know, something like that. But if you change that here, it will change it for everything else, and there's no like submit or apply. Once you change it and you click out of it, it is now your default font, and you can change that as many times as you want. Okay, so those are your basic customizations. So I'm going to delete these pages really quick because they're kind of ugly. Now, how to get these from the teacher notebook into the student notebook. All right, so now I've created these wonderful pages and I want to copy them over. All right, you can do this with sections. So if I want to do the whole unit 0 together, all I have to do is right click on it, move/copy, and I want this to go into my student folder. So I'm going to hit the student or my student notebook. So I hit student and then I just hit copy. Now when I go over to student, I'm going to see unit 0 and I have all of my pages in there. So you can do it with sections. You can also do it with just individual pages. So let's say I'm in syllabus. Cool. And let's say I want to just copy this page over. So I can go ahead and move/copy, and it's going to let me put it into student. And I can select which section I want it to go in. So let's just say I want it to go in here. I can go ahead and copy it into that one. All right, so in theory, you would definitely want to move your sections over first and then copy in your pages, because as you can see, I didn't have anywhere for it to really go. It just went into new section 1, but it is now in new section 1, that cool page I just made or whatever. All right, so it's really easy to go ahead and copy, and you can select multiple pages at once. So if I'm in teacher and I'm in unit 0, say I don't want to copy the whole section, say I just want to copy the homework page, you just hit shift and then, and say I also want to do notes, you just hit shift and then you can click on which ones you want to copy and again, copy and paste it into wherever you want it to go. Okay, so I think that's pretty much it for setting up the notebooks, how to do your sections, your pages, how to copy. The next thing I want to show you guys how to do is to insert things. All right, so there's two main things that I found that I inserted last year. So I inserted a lot of documents and I also inserted a lot of audio, especially once we went to online learning. So we're going to talk about the printouts first, or the files. So if you look on the insert tab, you're going to see that there are two things right next to each other. One says file, one says printout. They, for the most part, do the same thing. I did find that printout worked a little bit better. So what printout is going to do is it's going to take your document that you're inserting and it's going to convert it to a PDF, and then it's going to insert it into OneNote as a PDF. Inserting a file is going to insert it using the same format that it was saved as on your computer. So if you made a Word document, it's going to insert a Word document onto your class notebook. The only downside to that is that from a student standpoint, there was a lot of times where if I did the file option, they wouldn't be able to see the document on their side. So it would show up with a lot of broken documents, like the picture with like the little squiggle through it, or it would maybe only load part of the document and not the whole thing. My recommendation is to always use that printout option. So we want to, this is syllabus, so let's go ahead and insert a syllabus. So once I hit printout, and then this popped up, my file finder thing. And so pre-calc, there you go, syllabus. All right, so it's going to take a second to load. It's inserting it because it's going to convert it to, it's going to take that Word document and convert it to a PDF. All right, but here it is. So there's my syllabus. Now, these things up here, they are fine if it's in the teacher version, but the students are going to get no use out of these little icons right here. What they are is it's allowing you to click on it and then it will pop up the document that you originally put in here. which is great. The only downside is students have no use for that because they can't access that document, right? I can access that document because it's on my computer, but when they're at their house using their computer, they don't have access to those documents. So if they were to go ahead and click on this link, it would not open anything for them. So what I tend to do is I just delete these because they don't really help the students. Okay, and it doesn't do anything. It just deletes the path to the file. Anyways, so now that I'm in here, I have these nice PDFs. And so my syllabus was a front and a back. So I have 2 pages, and that's what it does for every document. So if it's a multiple page document, even a PowerPoint, it's going to insert everything as its own page. So in PowerPoint, each slide is going to insert as its own page that moves separately from the other ones. It's nice. It's also a little annoying sometimes, but it is what it is. Now, once this is in here, if you have a touchscreen computer and you have some kind of stylus, you can now write on this and it will save that writing in your OneNote, which is really nice. But yeah, it's good to go. So that's inserting a file into your pages. You can insert multiple files on the same page. Like I said, you can also insert pictures, online videos, links. I didn't really use those that much, but I did use the next one, which is audio. I think this is a really cool tool, especially since we are doing this online learning now. What audio allows you to do is record your voice on a certain page, and then students can listen to that. So I would have like a thing where it was like a bunch of notes, for instance, and I wanted to kind of explain the notes, not just have the students read it. You can record your voice explaining it, and then the students will be able to listen to that audio and get that explanation straight from you. You can also add more than one audio to each page. So if you wanted to read the instructions at the top, you can record audio for that. And then if you wanted to read something down maybe at the bottom of the page, you can make a brand new audio for that, and it's all on the same page. All you have to do is click, and as soon as you click audio, it is going to start recording. So I clicked audio, and as you can see down here in the right hand corner, I have a little audio thing. All right, so this is recording right now. We're at what, 10 seconds, 11 seconds. All right, so then I just hit stop. All right, now I'm able to drag this wherever I wanted to. I can drag it right onto my printout if I wanted. And say, so I'm just reading, maybe that's me reading the title of the thing, right? All the students would have to do is click on it, hit play, and it will play that recording. If I wanted to do another recording, all I have to do is hit record again. And if you look, a separate one will pop up. So this is my second audio, and you can, like I said, move them separate from each other. But this is a brand new audio. So this is not going to give them the same voice that they heard in the original one. It's going to give them this new audio. And again, when you're done, you just hit stop, and it stops the audio. All right, and again, you can move this anywhere around your document that you want. This little typing right here doesn't matter. You can delete it. It's not doing anything. It's just titling the audio that you gave it with a date. But yeah, so that is it for the audio piece. I think the last thing we have to do is go over how to share this document or this notebook, because now you want your students to have access to this, right? So it is very simple. What I did last year was I just shared a link I just copied a link to this notebook, pasted it on my Schoology page, and then students had access anytime they needed it. All they had to do was go to Schoology and click the link to the class notebook. So that's what I'm going to show you guys how to do. So in the top corner, you see there's a button called Share. You're going to click on it. All right, now you do have the option to just send your notebook to another person. You would just need their email address if you wanted to send it to someone individually. What I'm going to do, since I'm posting this link, is I'm going to copy the link, but first I want to kind of choose who can see it. So if you click on this top part where it says people you specify can edit, all right, the first thing it asks you is, who do you want the link to work for? I want this link to work for anybody that has a link. You can't get specific and say, oh, only for people in Seattle Public Schools. It doesn't really matter to me, because I am going to unclick the box that says allow editing, because I don't want anyone to be able to edit this except for myself. So I'm going to uncheck that. So now I can't allow editing. Now I don't really care who can see my notebook, because it doesn't matter. Who's gonna break into someone else's Schoology account and click on their class notebook link and then read their notes? Nobody, right? So then I'm gonna hit apply, and now all I have to do is hit copy the link. All right, so now this is the link to my teacher notebook. Now, generally I wouldn't share the teacher notebook because remember the teacher one is for me, but it doesn't matter because I'm going to delete it as soon as we do this tutorial, right? So I'm going to hit copy. And now I'm going to go to my Schoology page. So this is my Schoology page from last year. All right, so this is how I had my thing set up. All right, and you can actually see the real notebook that we use for classes up top, but let's just say I want to add this one. So add material, add file, link, external tool, and then we are adding a link. So I'm going to click on the link one, and then I'm just going to paste what I copied, and I'm going to give it a title, new class notebook, sure. All right, the last thing I'm going to do is I'm going to hit this little thing where it says display in Schoology. I don't want that. I want it to display in a new window. So if I click on it, it now is going to display this OneNote link in a new window. I think that works a little bit better than displaying it in Schoology because Schoology is a little bit weird about how it lets you view it. So I like to do that. Now I'm going to hit add. All right, so now if I scroll down to the bottom, here's my link that I just posted. All right, and so if I'm a student and I click on that, this is what it's gonna look like. So it's gonna pop me open into a new tab, and it is opening up OneNote. And now I can see all of this. So I can see syllabus, I can see pacing guide, which is blank. I can see unit 0 with all of my pages in here. All right, so I now have access to this. Now that is the only time that you ever have to share that notebook link. You don't have to do it again. If you go into, and I'll show you. So if we go into syllabus and say we add a new page, right? So add a page, all right? And I type in some stuff in here. All right, this wasn't in there before. I just did this brand new after I copied the link. Well, I can go back to Schoology. All right, now I did close that tab out, but if I reopen it, that new page is automatically updated into their OneNote. So if I'm in syllabus, right, I now have this new page I did not have before with all that beautiful typing that I just did. And that's what the students see. So when you write something, it automatically is going to show up. You don't have to keep going back to Schoology and uploading new things. Once you paste that link, you are done. Your notebook is going to update whenever you type in it or whenever you write in it or whenever you put things in it. It's kind of like you do that once to Schoology and then you're done. Everything else is just you writing in that notebook. So it saved me a ton of time last year. Countless hours of going to Schoology to upload the notes for the day or for the week. You just don't have to do that anymore because it's all in OneNote and they already have it because they have that link. So I hope this was helpful for you. We definitely didn't get into everything that OneNote can do, but we did cover most of the basics. If you still need some help setting up your notebook and want some tips and tricks, I can do my best to try and help you figure it out. I'm not a professional OneNote person. I'm not employed by Microsoft, obviously, but I do have a year kind of experience using OneNote and using these tools, so I can do my best to try and help you figure something out. If you just want to kind of bounce ideas off of me, please just reach out via email or via email because we can't go see each other because we won't be in school together, right? But yeah, I'd be happy to answer any questions that you guys have. Again, I hope this was helpful. I hope it converts some of you guys to using OneNote because it was tremendously helpful last year for both me and my students. So I hope you take a look at it and I hope you enjoy. Thanks. Bye, guys. Sorry, the stop recording button was so far away.